Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to being well informed. Today, we're diving into something that can feel, well, pretty dense: the world of research literature.
Absolutely. It's a common hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever tried to get up to speed on a new field, almost every paper kicks off with a literature review.
That phrase gets used a lot.
Exactly. And we tend to treat literature review like it's just one single thing, right? We sort of assume it means they did thorough homework.
It implies a certain level of comprehensiveness.
But the reality is, digging into evidence synthesis. It's like navigating a methodological minefield. Our sources actually point to at least 14 distinct types of research reviews.
14, yeah. Each with its own specific rules.
And, more importantly, its own level of rigor, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. That's the crucial part.
So our mission today is basically to bring some order to this chaos for you. By the end of our chat, you should be able to look at the name of a review and instantly know what kind of evidence you're dealing with.
Spotting the difference between a quick summary and, say, a real statistical powerhouse.
That's the goal.
And knowing that difference is so critical because the type of review tells you not just what they looked at, but how systematically they did it, how transparently, how rigorously.
Right.
And if you're making decisions based on this research, maybe you're in policy or finance or just trying to learn using knowledge from a weak review, that carries real risks.
You really need to look under the hood, see the intent behind the method.
Precisely.
Okay, let's get into it then. Starting where most people probably start, with those more generic terms. What are the common review types we see that might not pack the biggest methodological punch, more descriptive than analytical?
Well, the first one is the big catch-all,
Hmm.
the literature review. You often see it called a narrative review, too.
Narrative review, okay.
Yeah, think of it as the most basic kind of summary. It covers the subject, sure.
Yeah.
But, well, the level of completeness and how thorough it is can really vary.
So if someone just says, we did a literature review.
It often just means we read some relevant stuff and wrote about it. It's foundational, yes, but it usually lacks that clear, transparent methodology. You don't know why they picked certain studies and left others out.
Gotcha. So the narrative review is that broad sweep. Tells us they looked around, but not necessarily how or why.
Exactly. Then moving just a little bit more specifically, perhaps, you have the general overview.
Overview, another general one.
Another pretty generic term, yeah.
Yeah.
It's typically used to survey the literature, describe what's there. And here's a fun fact. Historically speaking,
Oh.
decades ago, overview was sometimes actually used interchangeably with systematic review.
No kidding. That is confusing.
Right. Thankfully, the language has sharpened up since then, but it shows you why getting these terms straight is so important now.
Definitely. Okay, what if we want to zoom in specifically on what's happening right now in the research? Is there a term for that kind of current snapshot?
Yes, absolutely. That would
Yeah.
be the state-of-the-art review.
State of the art. Makes sense.
It's really a subtype of the narrative review, but its focus is sharper. It tends to tackle more current topics, and importantly, the aim is often to offer new ways of looking at things, or to clearly point out where future research should go.
So it's trying to push the conversation forward.
Exactly. It's inherently forward-looking, not just summarizing what's already been done.
Okay, that helps classify those descriptive types.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about reviews designed specifically to set the stage for new research, the ones that are like reconnaissance missions?
Yes. Now we're moving into what you could call the preparatory or mapping group. A really key one here is the scoping review.
Scoping review.
The reconnaissance analogy is perfect. A scoping review gives you that preliminary assessment. It checks out the potential size and the scope of the research that's available.
So how much is out there?
Exactly. What's the nature of it? What's the extent? It often even includes studies that are still ongoing. You'd use it when you think a full systematic review might not quite fit your goals. Or maybe you just need to know if there's even enough solid research out there to warrant doing one later.
Okay, so scoping finds the edges of the map, the boundaries of the research terrain. What if our main goal is to find the blank spots on that map, the gaps that need filling?
Right. That shifts us more towards a mapping review, or sometimes it's called a systematic map.
Mapping review, systematic map. Okay.
So while scoping looks at the overall size, mapping has a very specific goal. Map out and categorize what exists, specifically to pinpoint the gaps in the research knowledge.
And these are actionable.
Very much so. These maps are often used to decide where new research should be commissioned. It doesn't just count studies. It often characterizes the quantity and the quality of the work in that specific area.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. We're moving beyond just reading the landscape and into methods that are designed to be precise, transparent, replicable, If we want evidence that, say, policymakers can really rely on, we need these systematic types, right?
Absolutely. This is where rigor really kicks in.
Yeah.
And the moment you see the term systematic review, you should be thinking gold standard.
Gold standard. That's a strong claim.
It is, because it's the best known and generally most rigorous type. It demands a highly detailed, pre-planned protocol. You have to specify exactly how you search for evidence, how you assessed its quality, and how you synthesized it.
You know, a lot of people hear systematic and probably just think organized, like you put your references in order. What's the real difference between just being organized and doing a proper systematic review?
That is the perfect question. Organization is good for any review, even a narrative one. But for a systematic review, adherence to a plan is mandatory. The absolute key is transparency and sticking to established guidelines.
Guidelines
Like those from the Cochrane Collaboration, for example. They're a global nonprofit, huge in healthcare, setting the standards for how to do this properly. Or the NHS Center for Reviews and Dissemination in the UK.
Okay.
By following these rigorous public standards, the whole process becomes repeatable. If I take your exact steps, your protocol, I should find the same studies and ideally reach similar conclusions. That's the core difference, that replicability.
That really clarifies the stakes. Okay, now, often when the public hears about a systematic review, what they're really latching onto is the statistical power that comes from combining data from multiple studies, which brings us to meta-analysis.
Right, and it's important to be precise here. Meta-analysis is a statistical technique, not really a standalone review methodology itself.
Ah, okay, a tool.
Exactly. Think of it like a powerful calculator you apply after you've gathered your studies. It statistically pools the results from multiple quantitative studies with numbers to get a single, more precise, more powerful estimate of an effect. Like, does this drug actually work?
And the key link is?
The absolutely essential connection you must remember. A valid meta-analysis requires a systematic review first. You have to systematically find, vet, and appraise your studies before you can legitimately combine their numbers.
Neither way.
Otherwise, you're just averaging potentially flawed data. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Makes sense. Are there other variations in this rigorous space?
Well, there's also the term systematic search and review. This one tries to blend the really thorough search process of a systematic review with the more evaluative, critical aspects you might find in a critical review.
Yeah.
We'll get to that one in a moment.
Okay.
The result is often called a best evidence synthesis, and it can tackle broader questions than a typical, highly focused systematic review.
Okay, I understand the gold standard now, but let's be realistic. Research often happens under tight deadlines or limited budgets, right?
Always.
So what do researchers do when they need that systematic rigor but just don't have the time or resources for the full Cochrane treatment? They must have to cut some corners, methodologically speaking.
They do, but the key is that those concessions, those shortcuts, need to be transparently reported. This leads us to the rapid review.
Rapid review. The name fits.
It does. It still uses systematic methods, searching, appraising bare, but it makes specific documented concessions. Maybe they only search 2 major databases instead of 10. Or they streamline the quality assessment process.
And the goal is speed.
Speed for urgent needs, exactly. Getting a quick assessment of what's known about a pressing policy or practice issue. Think about needing evidence fast during a public health crisis, for example.
Right, makes sense.
And then there's one more in this sort of systematic-ish category, the systematized review.
Systematized, not quite systematic.
Exactly. Here, the intent is systematic, but the final product stops short of meeting all the requirements for full systematic status. It includes elements of the process, like a comprehensive search, maybe.
But it misses something.
It might skip, for instance, having 2 researchers independently check the appraisal of every single study, which is a hallmark of a full systematic review. You often see these done when there's systematic intent, but not the funding or scope for a massive project like a postgraduate student's dissertation, for example.
So a good effort, but maybe not the final word for, say, changing major policy.
It's a valuable step, often a great starting point, but yeah, probably not the definitive proof point you'd get from a full systematic review.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked aggregation, precision. What about reviews that have more specialized goals? Maybe highly interpretive aims like building new theories or models or synthesizing really different kinds of data together?
Right, moving beyond just summing things up. The first one in this ambitious group is the critical review.
Critical review sounds judgmental.
Well, it is evaluative, but it goes way beyond just describing studies. The goal here is deep analysis and often conceptual innovation.
Innovation. How so?
The researcher critically assesses the quality and contribution of work in the field, sure, but the expected output isn't just a summary. It's typically a new hypothesis or a theoretical model. They're using the existing literature as raw material to build something new, conceptually.
Wow, okay, so that's using synthesis to actually generate theory. That's pretty powerful.
It really is. Highly valuable.
But what happens when the evidence you're reviewing isn't numbers from trials, but things like interview transcripts or field notes from observations or patient stories, qualitative data?
You need a different kind of synthesis tool for that.
Yeah.
That's where the qualitative systematic review comes in, or you might see it called qualitative evidence synthesis, QES.
Okay.
QES, this is all about integrating or comparing findings from qualitative studies. Instead of crunching numbers to find a combined statistical effect,
You're looking for.
you're looking for common themes or constructs that emerge across the different studies. What patterns are there in people's experiences or perspectives? Its purpose is fundamentally interpretative.
To understand better, not just to count.
Precisely. To broaden our understanding of a phenomenon like patient experiences with a treatment, or why an intervention works in some contexts, rather than just aggregating outcomes.
That makes sense? Complex problems often need more than just numbers.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into the mixed studies review, sometimes called a mixed methods review.
Mixing quantitative and qualitative.
That's the idea. It refers to pretty much any review approach where one major component is a literature review, usually a systematic one, that deliberately combines findings from different types of studies. Quantitative research, like effectiveness trials, combined with qualitative research, maybe exploring implementation or experience.
Why do that? What's the benefit?
It's often used to tackle really complex questions, especially in policy or service delivery. Questions like, okay, what works, but also under which circumstances does it work best, and why did it seem to work for this group, but not that one? You're trying to get the whole richer picture.
Combining the what with the why and how.
You got it.
Okay, one last category. You mentioned reviews that review other reviews. That sounds like the ultimate summary, maybe. The top of the evidence mountain.
That's a great way to think about the umbrella review, sometimes called a review of reviews.
Umbrella review. I like that. Covering everything underneath.
Exactly. It's a highly specialized type. Its job is to compile evidence from multiple existing reviews. Very often, it pulls together several high-quality Cochrane systematic reviews into one single accessible document.
So what's the main use case for that?
The key application is usually when you have a broad condition or problem, let's say, managing chronic back pain, where there are lots of competing interventions. Dozens of different treatments might exist, each with its own systematic reviews.
Okay.
The umbrella review pulls those together, highlights the findings, and contrasts the results of all those component reviews. It gives you that ultimate bird's eye view of an entire treatment landscape. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay, so let's recap. What does this all mean for you listening right now? We've really journeyed from that vague, sometimes low-rigor narrative review.
Which is basically a literature-informed essay.
Right. All the way up to these highly structured, super rigorous forms like the systematic review, the meta-analysis, and even the umbrella review sitting way up high, summarizing other summaries. So for you, the learner, the big takeaway is almost like instant intelligence, right?
I think so. The name of the review really does tell you a lot about the methodological intent and therefore the strength of the evidence.
If you see narrative review or just literature review,
Approach it with, let's say, healthy curiosity. It's a great starting point, maybe, but probably not the definitive final answer on its own.
but if you see systematic review or meta-analysis or umbrella review,
You know you're dealing with evidence that's likely been through multiple tough levels of checking and synthesis, often based on internationally agreed standards. You can generally place more trust there.
exactly. And knowing the review type isn't just some academic footnote, it's basically risk management when you're using research findings.
It really is. The purpose dictates the method, and the method dictates the trustworthiness.
So here's a final thought to chew on. We talked about the critical review, the one aiming to produce a strong new hypothesis or even a whole conceptual model.
Using literature to build something new.
Right. So think about a challenge you are facing right now, professionally or personally. Is there an area where just getting a summary of what's already known isn't quite enough?
Where you need more than aggregation.
Where you actually need that focused conceptual leap, that innovation, something more than just knowing what we think we already know, something to mull over until next time?